Minister Bheki Cele delivered his budget speech on Tuesday. He said that apart from a 10,000 intake of new trainees this year, the police will prioritize spending on public order policing to respond effectively to unrest by adding 4,000 members. Joining us now is Lesiba Thobakgale of the South African Policing Union to discuss what communities actually want from the police. Lesiba, good evening, and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. As the police union, do you approve of the budget? Do you vote for it? Do you think it's an adequate budget, 100 billion to the South African Police Service?
Thank you so much, Butabo, to have us. As the South African Policing Union, we welcome the budget that has been allocated by the police minister. It is always our belief that there should be even more budget that is clearly allocated to the police. Because when you look at the role that the Community Policing Forum has to play within the South African police services, it is indeed big, and the police themselves, they need quite resources. But there is quite an issue which we have identified as a union, that Community Policing Forum has been politicized, whereby you find that it has since became to be the agents of political parties, whereby they are just there to go and make life difficult for station commanders and controlling them, instead of assisting the challenges, being it the issues of resources, being it the issues of the budget that the stations have, being them coming to play a role, because a Community Policing Forum has a big role, as they are recognized in terms of the South African Police Act, the role that they need to play. Let's take an example. What we've seen happening in places like Diepsloot and so on, it becomes difficult for the police to do their jobs there because of the issues of infrastructure. How do the police go and patrol such communities? That is where the role of Community Policing Forum needs to come in and assist the police in terms of all the challenges that the community are facing based on infrastructure and anything else, so that policing can be easier for the police. And remember, Butabo, the police are unable on their own to do policing without the communities being involved.
Yeah.
In the police, we had what we call a Polmuska, which is quite a good initiative. Yeah. That helps, you know, in events like that, you'll find that community choirs, they will be doing music and competing together with the police and so on. They'll be playing games and so on. Those are some of the good initiatives which have collapsed. And if indeed they are revived, the relationship between our communities and also even our police would be revived, and be able to ensure that jointly they are able to fight that all challenges that we are seeing within our country.
So, I mean, as you put it, the philosophy of community policing is not something new. In fact, as you put it, you're saying law enforcement in the past used to have that kind of a relationship and certainly improved things. But then you also say part of the challenge of what has happened is that politics have gotten into the private security space, which in a sense creates a barrier for police to continue to do their work. So what went wrong? How did we get to that point? What went wrong that politics began to infiltrate the private security space?
Political interest taking the center stage, it is indeed what went wrong. Instead of Community Policing Forum, you find that those who are there within our communities, instead of them saying that the police, let us deal with all issues that relates to how policing is supposed to be done. You find that it is the issues of settling political scores. Some, they have their own vested interest within the police stations, and when it comes to the issues of resources. Because remember, the station commanders, they have a duty to cooperate very well with the Community Policing Forum. But if the Community Policing Forum, their interest, it is not about to see the police succeeding. It is about taking those resources to utilize them for their own political interest. Then that is where we went wrong. But as we have seen, as we have identified where we went wrong, we really appreciate what the minister is bringing forth, because the issue of Community Policing Forum, we've been on record saying that it has collapsed. Indeed, it has, because it has been depoliticized. Yeah. It is time to revive it in order to build that relationship. Those who are participating within the Community Policing Forum, they should come and be at the center stage. to assist the police to fight crimes like gender-based violence. Remember, gender-based violence, it is one of those crimes which happens behind closed doors. If maybe the victims are unable to go directly to the police because they fear that the perpetrators will have knowledge that they went to the police, they would be able to go and approach the community policing forum. But how can they go and approach the community policing forum if they themselves are not there, or if they themselves do not cooperate very well with the police and also the communities as well? So in order to fight crimes like GBV, indeed, community policing forum will play a very critical role in terms of ensuring that they give support to the police and also give support to the victims of crime. Because also, even those perpetrators within our communities, it also becomes easier when our communities, those who fear to report direct to the police, go into those who are the community policing forum leaders to go and give them information. Then that clear cooperation will assist the South African police services and also our communities. But moreover, we need to deal with the issues of infrastructure, which also needs a multi-dimensional approach, because a lot of departments there are involved. But then the role of community policing forum is to come in and also ensure that they influence where influence is needed so that policing can become easier within those communities.
Now you've identified the problem, then how do we improve transparency so that the problem where it occurs, it is exposed and then dealt with? Because some of these things, the police know about them. They know of that political interference, but there is no transparency then as far as the police are concerned. So if we are to improve this triangle of CPF's business and policing, there needs to be a degree of being transparent and being open about these things that are happening and the degree of political interference that you experience.
It is our belief. Remember, community policing forum, there is no way where maybe a specific or the police management would not be transparent to the police. When it comes to the issues of resources, coming to the issues of the budgets, coming to the issue of the crimes, being it whatever the crime statistics and how the trends and also anything that relates to crime is concerned within a specific policing area, it is not something that should be kept away from the community policing forum. That is not how things are, and that is not how things will ever be. What is needed here, it is to bring this good integration between the community policing forum and the police. And remember, when we go to look at the programs that we used to have through the community policing forum, where they would have programs with the kids, because certain things needs to be done within, certain programs needs to be run around the communities where the kids themselves are involved, so they could understand from a young age on the impacts of crime. What does crime mean, and in terms of the impacts thereof, the negative impacts it has on communities, and so on. So that is where, indeed, community policing forum should now, as they've had their hands off, they need to come again and have their hands on so that those programs can be revived, and also the programs of COMUSCA, which has been championed by the police. We can have all of that join hands and ensure that all vested political interests are left aside. Everything that is given a focus is to say, how do we make our communities better? How do we ensure that the station commander who has to report, who has to account in terms of the crime statistics within his policing area, and also even to the CPF, that how is he getting assisted, where the issues of resources, being it the human capital, being it the issue of physical resources, and so on. And with that cooperation, it has worked before. If we go back to the drawing board and use and implement what used to work for ourselves and what used to work for the police and our communities, we strongly believe as SAPU that we will succeed with regards to that. We need to go back to where we have been before.
What is the view of the police on the private security, right? CIRA is saying they've conducted their own analysis to determine what went wrong in as far as the relationship between police and private security and involving security industry as a force multiplier, shall I say, in the fight against crime. They say one of the things that needs to happen is create a relationship where there's information gathering and sharing between the two. So an intelligence-driven collaboration kind of a thing, so that the security gaps field. What's the view of police on that?
Our view as SAP is that that cooperation, it is clear it's supposed to happen. And in other areas, indeed, it is happening in that manner. But we need to guard against the issue where you find that maybe the overstepping of powers. Remember, the police have certain powers to exercise when we look at the operational part thereof. And also private security has certain powers that they could exercise because they are regarded also as citizens in one way or another. And when we look at what SIRA Act is saying itself. So if indeed there are no issues of where you find that the powers are being overlapped and so on, we strongly believe as SAPU that both of them, they need one another. But one thing that we need to guard against is that the security forces are not supposed to come and replace what the police are supposed to be doing. Because as we speak now in this country, we've got the private security themselves who are so higher now, more than the South African police services. And that in itself, it really presents gaps in between, and even where the overlapping of duties or even roles in regard to issues that are relating to security. So what management or the police have to do, the issue of the 10,000, which we still regard as the drop in the ocean, we are still appreciating it. We need to increase the human capital within the South African police services so that we don't have any issues that will bring any form of conflict between the private security and also our police, because as we speak now, the police do not have enough numbers. So there need to be more recruitment so that we can have even enough police officials so that this cooperation can indeed be a balanced, or it can be a balanced equilibrium so that all of them could be able to hold hands together and fight crime, because at the end of the day, it is about keeping our communities safer. But in relation to how they should operate, everyone has to make sure that they operate under the scope of the law in terms of which law is applicable to each one of them, being private security and also what is empowered to the police in terms of the law.
Speaking of balance, I mean, you're saying there needs to be more capacity brought on in terms of human resource. The minister highlighting that compensation of employees is accounting for an estimated now 78.3% of the department's total expenditure, close to 80% going to employee compensation. And of course, our police have got to be paid because of the job that they do. But are you concerned that that kind of split is probably beginning to be a little bit dangerous in terms of if you spend 80% and you only have 20% left to buy things like cars and build police stations and so on and so forth, it becomes a little bit of a challenge?
Yeah, Butabo, when anyone speaks about the budget of the police or the issues of the compensation, it is our belief, because we know it is factual, that our police officials are underpaid. And the high chunk or the biggest chunk of compensation, it goes to senior managers. It doesn't go to non-commissioned officers whom they themselves are indeed the boots on the ground. They are the ones you will go to the community service center, are the ones when one needs the police, they are the ones who would go and attend to those complaints. They are the ones who are getting shot there. They are the ones who are facing the cash in transit in progress complaints where they get shot and are getting killed. So we need to dissect the issue of that compensation to say, where is it going? That is why, as SAPU, we have clearly concluded that agreement, which speaks to restructuring, whereby we are saying, yes, we see the biggest compensation, it goes to senior managers, whom in most cases, all of them, they are confined within the national offices, being it in the divisions and also even at the head office in Pretoria. If all of those resources are channeled down there, when you will look and assess the value thereof of compensation and also the value that they would be bringing if they are taken down on the ground in order to perform those duties and give support and give leadership, which is clearly needed, then the issue of compensation, it would indeed have striking a balance in between the value of the job that is being done vis-a-vis the compensation. But when we speak of compensation, it is still our belief, because it is factual, that our police officers are underpaid, those who are doing policing, indeed physically so. So we strongly believe that they still need to be looked at the issues of their compensation because they deserve to get more. The issues of the benefits that they are getting. As we speak, it is said that the police officials are faced with what we call a service allowance. It is not even a danger allowance of 900 rand. But when you look at the danger that they're exposed to, there's every day in South Africa, there are a lot, numerous service delivery projects that are going on in all different communities, whereby you find that service delivery, it is at the center of it all. But the police are the ones who are expected to go there and calm down that fire. But at the end of the day, what do they get? A 900 service allowance. When you look at the salary scales thereof, of those who go there to attend physically at all of those challenges, to give support and to protect our communities, are underpaid. So when we look at that matter, indeed, a balance needs to be stricken to say which ones are really taking a chunk in terms of compensation and are not the ones, indeed, who are suffering on the ground. So it is our belief that they need to be compensated even better, because when we look at what they are receiving now, it is not adequate at all.
Lesiba, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Lesiba Thobakgale speaks for the South African Police Union of South Africa.